Even though we are in Parshas Matos, which is very far ahead of that, I want to talk about something else for a minute. 131 is in Parshas Toldos. It talks about Yitzchak. And if we look at it beginning on verse 15, here in Parshas Toldos, in chapter 26, it says, in the Hebrew, all of the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Avram, his father, the Philistines stopped up. So here you have Yitzchak, right, and he's living in a very hot part of Israel, and he goes and wants to get water, right? You have to have a well to get water. They didn't have running water like us. So his father, Avram, right, our forefather, had dug wells in different places. And it turns out that the people who lived there, the Plishtim, the Philistines, they filled in the wells just to be difficult, right? So he says that, right? So his father dug these wells, right, and now they were filled in with earth. And Avimelech says to Isaac, right? So he says to Yitzchak, "Go away from us, for you have become much mightier than we." So Avimelech, right, who is the sort of the local chieftain, the head of the area, he tells out to Yitzchak, he says, "Get out of here. We're afraid of you. This is our land, right?" So he says, "How am I doing in there? Am I showing up correctly?" Okay. So this is our land. And now it's one thing to be a visitor, but now you're mighty, you're powerful, you have money, you have people, and we want to get rid of you. We're afraid you're going to take us over. So, and it says he had acquired flocks and herds and many enterprises, and the Plishtim envied him. Right? They were afraid of him. They envied him. They were afraid of him, and they wanted to get rid of him. And then it goes on. So all of the wells that his father's servants had dug in the days of Avram, his father, the Plishtim, stopped up and filled with earth. Avimelech tells him, "Go away from us, you have become much mightier than we." So Yitzchak departed from there and encamped in the valley of Gerar and dwelled there. Now it says, and Yitzchak dug anew the wells of water which they had dug in the days of Avram his father, and the Plishtim had stopped up after Avram's death. And he called them by the same names that his father had called them. And then it says, Isaac's servants dug in the valley and found there a well of fresh water. The herdsmen of Gerar quarreled with Isaac's herdsmen, saying, "The water of ours." Right? The water is ours. So here you have Isaac's servants go and they dig a well. Right? Now the people who live in the area say, doesn't matter that you dug a well, it's our land. You're digging a well on our land. Right? So it's our water. That's what they say to him. And they had a quarrel. They had a fight over it. And therefore, he called the name of this place Esek, which means like a negative experience, a fight. They were not getting along over it, right? So that's what he named the well, because they got involved themselves with him. Then they dug another well, and they quarreled over that also. So now they make a second well, right? Isaac's servants dug a second well, and then the men from Gerar come and they argue with him also. So they called it Sitna. Sitna coming from hatred, from Sina, right? It was hatred among them. He relocated from there. So then Yitzchak goes, he says, "I'm not looking for no trouble." So he goes to another place, he dug another well. They did not quarrel over that. That one, there was no argument over. They didn't come to fight. So he called it Rechovos. Rechovos, right? And he said, "For now Hashem has granted us ample space," because Rechovot means wide area, an open, wide area. Like in Hebrew, Rechov is a street, right? Rechovos or Rechovot would be many streets, but it also means just as a street is wide, right? It's an open area where you can drive down rather than like a little narrow bike path. So it's an open, wide area. So he called this open, wide, because there was no fight. What does a fight do? It puts you up against each other, so everything's narrow. Here they're wide, it's open, everything is free. Right? So he has this new well. And he went up from there to Beersheba. Hashem appears to him and he says, "I am the God of your father Avraham. Fear not, for I am with you. I will bless you and increase your offspring because of Avram, my servant." He built an altar there, invoked Hashem by name. He pitched a tent, and then there Isaac's servants dug a well, another well. So, but what we have here, basically, until this one line, we have three wells. Well, number one, he digs a well, and they fight with him. So imagine this. You start out, he has there's 3 wells that Avraham built, right? Avraham himself went and he created these wells. Nobody argued that he did that. Well, after Avram left, and he goes through everything we know about in the Torah, and Yitzchak then goes through what we know. The Plishtim came and they filled in the wells. Right? They wanted to get rid of Abraham's wells, so they filled them in with dirt. So then Yitzchak comes and wants to reuse the wells. They tell him you can't use the real wells. There are wells. Right? So what are they saying here? These pagans are saying, we don't want the wells. Oh, but you want the wells? If you want the wells, you can't have them because we want them. But we don't want them in the first place, right? They filled them in. In other words, they're showing their real hatred for him. We don't want this. But the only reason we want it is so that you shouldn't have it. Right? So then he goes, all right, I'm not going to start up with you. I'm going to make my own wells. So they dig a well, and they come and say, oh, what do you mean? That's our well too. This is our area. That's our well. And they fight with him. So he says, okay, goes to the next one. Digs another well. They fight with him again. Right? And now it becomes clear to him that they hate him. Right? It's hatred. So he goes and he makes another well in a farther off place. And they don't say anything. And there it's okay. Now they've already told him to leave, right? They came to him and said, leave. We don't want you here. So the commentaries ask, the Torah is an eternal book. It's eternal. It's always going to be here. The Torah is it is the direction book, the manual for life. How do you live your life? So therefore, whatever's in the Torah is important. God felt it was important enough that everybody throughout the history of the world should know whatever it is he puts in it. So if he puts in it how the world was created, he wants everyone to know this is how the world was created. That's what he puts in it. So sometimes the commentaries say that things that he puts in the Torah, right, some of them are clearly very, very significant, and everyone should know these things. But some things seem sort of like details. And why would he spend so much time on something that seems to really not be telling you anything? That's nothing really. How am I going to live my life? Right, is not being told to me by this. So they say this is an example. Here, Yitzchak goes to use water, so they're anti-Semites. They don't like him, so they fill in the wells, and then they fight with him about the wells, and then he builds more wells, and they fight with him about those wells, and they tell us the name of the wells and where the wells are. Really, who cares? Right? I mean, all right, yeah, I want to tell you that you should know that when you live in the desert, you should dig a well. All right, that's sort of evident. They don't tell you have to breathe. I don't know if they tell you have to drink water, you live in the desert. What is it telling us? That the Torah spends so much space here, 10, 12 lines, to tell us the story about the wells, which doesn't seem to really have much to say to us, right? That I need to know this. So the commentaries tell us that this is clearly, just simply because it's so odd, they put this in and so length, clearly this is a very strongly prophetic section of the Torah. All parts of the Torah are prophetic, but this one is that there's no simple answer to the question. The only answer can be is that it's coming to teach you something that's more abstract, right? It's not telling you you should not eat pig, therefore I know I shouldn't eat pig, right? It's telling you something that's more abstract. It's not literally the story, because I'm not going to go to Beersheba or to these other places and dig a well. I'm not going to do it. It doesn't happen, something I imagine I'll do in my life. So what do I need to know it for? Right? I'm certainly not going to meet any Plishtim, so what do I need it for? So the fact is as follows. This is a prophecy to tell us about the temples, the Jewish temples that are going to be built when the Jews come to Israel. And we know that there have been 2 temples that have been built. One was built by King David, right, was Shlomo HaMelech. One was built later on, so basically 70 years after the first was destroyed, and that one was destroyed by the Romans. So the first one was built in the days of David and Shlomo, and Shlomo's days really. It lasted, and then it was destroyed by the Babylonians. The Jews went off to Bavel, which is today considered modern-day Iraq, and there they lived for 70 years. They were told that they have improved. They can come back and build the second temple. The second temple is built. It's not as miraculous as the first one, but it's still a temple. We have our Commonwealth back. We have the temple. We have the Kohanim. Everything is pretty much running well. And then that gets destroyed by the Romans. Until today, it hasn't been fixed. Right? Today, we still don't have it. And we're waiting for the last temple to come. That's the temple of the Mashiach, of the Messiah, which will always be here, will never be destroyed. And the future, the Jewish people will be secure, right? And we'll be able to bring the world to completion. But so that's what this is talking about. This is telling us that Yitzhak wanted to build a well. What is a well? It's a place where you get natural water, spring water, coming out of the ground, constantly coming out. That is certainly symbolic of Torah. It's symbolic of Jewish life. It's just like water is always a symbol for Torah. It's also a symbol for spiritual cleanliness, right? A mikveh, it has to have water. The water in the mikveh, the Torah is symbolic of water. Just like the water keeps coming from the earth and it's a blessing, more and more water comes. It looks like there's nothing going to stop water, a spring of water. It just keeps coming and coming and coming. So too, the Torah is a blessing. So we have many symbols for water. And here we're saying that these wells are symbolic of the three temples. You have the three wells. Well number one, they dug. They have a disagreement with the local people. The people argue with them. They call the first one contention, right? That there's a disagreement, that people are not acting appropriately, and therefore the well gets filled in, and off they have to go to make a second one. The second one has the same thing happen, where the local people are fighting with the Hebrews or the Jews, and they also make the Jews leave and fill it in. And that one is called Sitna, because there was hatred between them, between the Jews and the others. And then finally they go to a far-off place and they make another one and nobody fights with them. That's called Rechovot, right? Open, wide spaces, everything is working fine. And that one, we're not told, is closed up. It's just used, right? So this is symbolic of the three temples. The first temple we know is built by Solomon and David. That this first temple that we had was destroyed because the Jews did not follow the way of God. They didn't do what they were supposed to do. You're supposed to follow the Torah. Instead, we were told that they did the three cardinal sins, the three really the worst sins that a Jew could do, which is to worship idols. They were involved in practicing other religions, so that's worship of idols. Illicit and immoral sexual intimacies, which also were things that they participated in, and murder. Murder is the third, and they also did that. So those three things we're told is what happened in those days, and because they acted in such a way, God just had the Babylonians come and destroy the temple and send the Jews off. When the second temple was about to be built, it was being built because the Jews atoned for what they did wrong. Right? God had to destroy the temple, send them off for 70 years until they learned their lesson. Now they learned their lesson, they're not going to do those things anymore, and God allows them to come back and build the second temple. So the second temple comes and is built, and everything is running until finally the Romans come to destroy it. And how is it that God allows the Romans to come and destroy it? And that's because the Jews also weren't acting correctly again, but not for the same reason. This time it says that they actually did acts of kindness for each other. They actually learned Torah. They didn't worship idols. They didn't commit murder. They were a very observant, very organized, very mitzvah observant country, the Jewish people. Yet Hashem destroyed the temple, and it says because they didn't get along with each other. The Jews fought with each other. They did mitzvahs. Somebody didn't have food, they provided them with food. Somebody didn't have money, they gave them the money. They cared for each other, but they didn't like each other, and they fought with each other. And the idea is called sinas chinam. Literally, that means free will hatred, hating somebody for no reason. We understand as Jews that means hating somebody, because unless you have a specific reason where you are required to hate someone, you're not allowed to hate them. So therefore, when I tell you sinat chinam, hatred that is free, that means hatred that is any type of hatred that's not a mitzvah to have. There's a mitzvah to hate Hitler, for instance. There's a mitzvah to do that. A person who's such an evil person who tries to destroy goodness in the world, is a mitzvah to hate him. But other than the people who it's a mitzvah to hate, any other type of hatred is wrong. And therefore, the Jews, while they did all of the mitzvahs, and they had a religious society, and they all went to yeshiva, and they did all the things they're supposed to do, they didn't get along with each other. And because of that, the second temple was destroyed. And they were dispersed throughout the world. The Romans destroyed it. We went to the whole world. And we're still there today, which means that we haven't atoned yet for that sin. Just like in the first temple, they atoned, so they were able to build the second one. If we atoned for the sin of the second temple, we would have the third temple today. That means we have not atoned. And it says in the Talmud that in a generation where the temple is not built, it is as if the temple was standing and that generation caused it to be destroyed. So in our generation, we don't have a temple. We would say, well, we don't have a temple because we're not good enough to build it. That's not the fact. What the Talmud tells us is that if we don't have a temple, that means that if we had a temple, it would be destroyed because of us. That's how far away we are from the goal. And the goal is to not have this hatred anymore between ourselves, which means it still exists. And I think we know it exists. I don't think it's a surprise. That idea that this type of hatred is such that people are not getting along and they're fighting with each other and they're hurting each other is the destruction of the second temple, and it's still something we are painfully living with today. And when we finally come to the point where we atone for this and we get past that, the third temple will be built and it will not be destroyed. So now Isaac builds well number one. It's destroyed because the Jews are not doing what they're supposed to be doing. Right? They're having this disagreement, and it's called contention. Is a contention in not doing what they should. The first well is destroyed. That's symbolic of the first temple. Now the second temple is rebuilt, so now Isaac goes and has his servants dig a second one. They comes and they have a disagreement with the people who live there, the natives, and therefore it's named Sitna, hatred. Just like the second temple was destroyed because of hatred among Jews, so too the second well was filled in and taken from us because of hatred. And then the third well. So it says that Isaac has to go a far distance away, and he builds the third well. We also go a far distance away. We're all over the world today. 2,000 years later, there's still no third temple. It's a long time. Between the first temple and the second temple is 70 years. The second temple and today is 2,000 years. And how much longer we have to wait, I can't say. Hopefully not long. Before we finally come to the realization that you can't treat people badly and you can't hate each other. But as long as we do, the second temple is destroyed. So too the second well is filled in because of hatred. When will the third one be built? When Isaac digs the third well is when he goes far away. And there they don't fight with him. So when we go far away, that is to say, we're sent into dispersion. We live all over the world. Jews live in Holland and live in South America and North America and Alaska and everywhere in the world that Jews live, because we can't get along with each other. When we come to the point we can get along with each other, we will go back to Israel. We will symbolically build the temple. We will symbolically redig that third well. And the third well, it being Rehovot, wide open areas, means that it's peaceful. Everything's open, right? If you're afraid you're going to be attacked, what do? You build fences, right? You put fences up so nobody should come in. Just like, what did the Americans do after 9/11? Like it used to be, you wanted to go to America, got to the border here in Ontario, they'd say, oh, okay, what kind of citizenship? I'd say American. They didn't ask me for my passport. They just said, okay, go ahead. They didn't give anybody a hard time, right? Suddenly after 9/11, we have to have security. People are attacking us. So they put up a wall. Now it's hard to get into America, right? They check on computers, and people who were getting in, there were people who were getting in out from Canada to America all the time. Suddenly they can't go anymore because they checked up on them. Today, now I want to go to America, I got to bring a passport. Right? I'm an American. Right? I got to bring an American passport to get into America. Otherwise, they make trouble because they put up walls for security. That's what the third temple is. It's all open because you don't need security. Everyone's at peace. That's when the Mashiach comes. So this is symbolically dealing with this. And this is the time of year that we're in right now. Yesterday was a fast day, the 17th day of the month of Tammuz. That is the first day of what we call the 3 weeks. Let's put it into perspective a little. There is a fast day, which is a relatively easy fast day for those of us in the northern hemisphere. And that fast day is called the 10th day of the month of Tevis. It's about a week after Hanukkah. Hanukkah ends in the 3rd day of Tevis. A week later, there's a 10th day of Tevis. That's a fast day. What happened on that day? That is the day that we know that the non-Jewish world that attacked the temple, that they actually gathered around the city of Jerusalem to put it under siege. They wanted to destroy Jerusalem. They wanted to take it over. You have the Romans, the Babylonians, all of these nations. They used to conquer the whole world, the whole world that they knew of. So they would go from country to country and conquer the world and make those people practice their religion, give money to their government, do what they wanted. So they would go to every country. They went to Syria. They went to all over the world, and they took over everything. They come to Israel. They're going to go to war with the Jews. Right? So they get to the Jewish capital, Jerusalem, and there's a wall around it. Now they've got to get past that wall. The day they got to that wall is the 10th day of the month of Tevis, approximately 6 months later, right? Because this is now a week after Hanukkah, so you're talking the beginning of January. They began their siege. They had this whole army trying to get into the city of Jerusalem, and the Jews kept them out. Because you have this very big wall. The Jews are on top of the wall, throwing stuff down on them. Every time they try to get up to the wall to get in, they can't. There's no way in. The doors are closed. Of course, the Jews on the inside are starving. because they can't get food brought in, right? The food from all the farms in the area, they can't get anything brought in. So whatever they have, or whatever they're able to sneak, right, through tunnels and get, they could do. But in general, they didn't have things. Finally, that happens on the 10th day of Tevis. But approximately 6 months later, the nations attacking the Jews enter the city. They're able to put a hole in the wall and get into the city. So now you have a war going on with hand-to-hand combat. Right? You're in the old city of Jerusalem, and they're fighting. The other country, right? They're coming in to destroy Jerusalem and take it over. They've gotten into the city now. There's no wall keeping them out. And now everybody of the city is fighting for their lives against them. And it took 3 weeks for them, let's say the Romans, to go from the entrance of the city where they put the wall in to conquer the entire city and destroy the temple. That took 3 weeks. The first day of the 3 weeks, when they actually broke through that wall, that is the 17th day of the month of Tammuz. That was yesterday. That was the day that they actually went through the wall. And today, they begin this 3-week struggle of fighting to get to the temple. So we, reminiscent of this, have a period that we call the 3 weeks. The 3 weeks which began yesterday are a time of mourning, national mourning. The Jewish people mourn as a nation over the fact that we no longer have a Jewish commonwealth. That means a free Jewish country run theocratically, run by the Torah. That's gone. We don't have such a thing. We have the state of Israel, which is a wonderful place to be, but that's not what it's referring to. That commonwealth is destroyed. That country is destroyed. Right? That's what happens in this period of time. As well, the temple itself is destroyed. As well, all types of other atrocities throughout history have happened in that day, and that period. And therefore, at this time, during this 3-week period, we go into a time of mourning, where we mourn for the destruction of the temple, for the loss of the country, and for many of the other atrocities that happened at that time. At this point, the mourning increases as time goes on during the 3-week period. Now we're in what's called just the 3 weeks. When we get to August 1st of this year, which is the same as the first day of the month of Av, the Hebrew month of Av, we begin what's called the 9 days. That means that this is the last 9 days as they were conquering and destroying the temple. So they'd already gotten through most of the city. They've got to the center part of the city, and now they're attacking the Jewish temple. And that becomes very intense for the last 9 days. And so up until now, we mourn, and that we don't get haircuts, we don't shave, we don't buy special things, we don't do things that bring us a lot of joy, we don't get married. We have these certain things that we don't do in order to show a certain amount of mourning, of sadness because of this. When we get to the 9 days, it intensifies a lot more. Not only everything I just said falls into place, but in addition, we also have that during the 9 days that we no longer go swimming. Whatever swimming that when we would go swimming, bathing, things like that for enjoyment that you do in the summertime, you don't do that then. We don't eat meat for 9 days except for on Shabbos. We really eat only dairy. Anything that could be understood as causing happiness, the average person would enjoy, we cut out. Right? We don't do for the most part. And therefore, we are increasing the mourning that we're in. And then we get to actually the 9th day of Av, which is known as Tisha B'Av, which just means 9 of Av, which Av being a month, the 9th day of that month is a fast day. It is the second most powerful and stringent fast day of the year. It is like Yom Kippur in that it starts at night and goes through the whole day rather than just the day. So it starts at nightfall and it goes till nightfall. And it is not only do we fast, but we don't wash, we don't shave, and all those other things that I mentioned before. We have the similar laws to Yom Kippur. And it's considered a very, very severe day of mourning because that is the day that all hope was lost on the temple. Not necessarily the temple was actually destroyed. Most people think that the temple was actually destroyed on the 9th day of Av. It wasn't really. It was really at the end of the 9th day of Av, it was lit on fire, and it burned down really on the 10th day of Av, in the first half of the day. So really on the 9th day of Av is when the hope was gone. It was all desperation. They had conquered the temple. They were in the temple. They were about to destroy it. And that's when there's no hope. There's nothing else to do. So that's why the 9th day of Av is the most severe. even though they actually lit the temple on the 10th of Av. They burnt it down. So we're in this progression. This section of the Torah is hinting at this. It's telling us this. The first well was destroyed because of this fighting between these two groups, because they weren't acting correctly. The second well was filled in because they fought with each other and didn't get along with each other. Different level of disagreement, but it was personal hatred from one to another, right? And therefore the second one was destroyed, and the third one, when it is built, will have peace. Just like their third one was built and they had peace, so too we will. And that's what this is symbolizing. That's why the Torah takes so much time to tell you this section, is to tell you, right, as we're going through history, that these things are going to happen. The first temple will be destroyed. The second one will be destroyed. The third one will be built. We have the luxury of hindsight. Right? Today, we're living in the year 2011. We've gone through most of history. I mean, the Torah was given 3,300 years ago. The Jews have been dispersed from the Second Temple for over 2,000 years. That's an enormous amount of time. Think about Canada being about 150 years old. The United States about 220 years old. Right? Those are like nothing. Those are toddlers. I'm talking about it, that we've been thrown out of Israel for 2,000 years. Right? We've been out of Israel. We were already there before then. We've been thrown out for 2,000 years. Right? That means that today we have an enormous amount of history to look back on. We look at this and we can clearly see that this prophecy happened. And just as the first two parts happened exactly as it's said here, the third part will also happen, which is we will be brought back to Israel and the third temple will be built. And we will have peace with that temple. But we have to cause it. And what's happened is that because of this hatred, what we call sinas chinam, this unnecessary hatred between Jews, because we are fighting with each other, not getting along with each other, we are the cause that we don't have this peace in the world. It means that all of the wars, all of the strife, all of the suffering, the starvation, all of the problems that are going on in the world, right, are happening because people are using their free will and they're acting incorrectly. But that would not happen if we were doing what we should do. If we were not fighting with each other, then all of these things would not happen. Right? There would be peace, because people would realize how important peace is. And because when the Messiah comes and the temple is built, they'll see a different world. And the reason they don't see the different world is because we're not doing our job. We're still doing the same mistake that our forefathers did 2,000 years ago. That means every generation, what's a generation, 40 years? So you multiply that over 2,000 years, right? You're talking about a lot of generations. And every one of those generations still had this problem of fighting among themselves. We see it ourselves all the time. Just open up the internet and take a look at any Jewish blog, and they're filled with one person who writes the blog, right, attacking other groups of Jews. It just happens. We see it ourselves. You see, probably in private, if I'd ask each one of you, you'd all could tell me stories of people who've insulted you, of other Jews who have hurt you, who have done things that you can't even understand why they would do it. And this type of hatred that goes on is very sad. I mean, I see it myself when I try to interact with some other organizations or synagogues, and sometimes there's just a total boundary, a wall put up. We want nothing to do with you. We're separate from you, and it's very sad. I'm sure that there are times that I participate and I try not to, and we all participate and we try not to. But we need to be conscious of this, because this is what it's telling us. And we are right now going through this season of the 3 weeks, the mourning, because we have not awoken to the problem. Not our parents didn't, and our grandparents didn't. We have not. That's really the sad thing, is that we ourselves, I'm telling you this, and I'm still participating in it. So it's extremely important for us to be conscious of this whole idea that we have to do such a thing. We actually, I wrote a letter. Every week I write a letter, and I send it out to the community. If you don't get it and you'd like to, you have to just ask to be on the list, and you can be on it. About 800 people are. And in the letter, I spoke about the murder of this baby, basically, a 9-year-old boy who was murdered in New York. I don't even have to ask if you've heard of, but it's pretty well known. And we all know how so many people were saying how you see the unity of the Jews, because Jews came from all over to help look for this boy. They came from cottages, right, from their bungalows up in the Catskills. They came from all over the tri-state area of New York. They came modern Orthodox Jews and Hasidic Jews and non-Hasidic Jews and this type of Hasidic Jew and that kind. They all came. It made no difference. A Jewish child was missing, so every Jew said, we have to put aside our differences and we have to do something to save him. And they did. They all did. They all came out. And it was a sight to be seen, that all kinds of Jews came out and thousands of people came out in order to help. However, on the one hand, as I wrote, on the one hand, you have to give credit when people do something, and they did it. But the truth is, anybody would do it. I mean, it makes no difference what your background is. It's not because you're Jewish. What group that would not do that for their own people? You have God forbid it should happen, an Italian boy gets taken, right, from the next neighborhood over. You don't think the Italians would come out to help? Of course they would. Right, if a Chinese child, God forbid that should happen to them out here on this side of the city in Markham, would get taken, you don't think every Chinese person will come and help? Of course, everybody feels for the parents. They all want to come out and help. Nobody's going to say, I don't care. Everybody cares. Right, you see it. And people from other groups come as well. So it's not some great accomplishment that we have such unity. And the fact is that what we're seeing is, the reason that we notice that all the Jews came out is because it takes God having to allow an 8-year-old boy to be murdered before we wake up and get unified and we get together. Right? It's a horrible thing to think of, that God wants us to unify. He wants us to get along with each other, and therefore He encourages us to do so. He tells us to do so. We all know it's logical that we should all get along with each other. What are we fighting over? You wear this kind of hat, that kind of yarmulke. You wear this kind of skirt, that kind of skirt. You eat kugel this way, you eat kugel that way. The challah looks this way. What are we fighting about? It's ridiculous, but we do. And because we do, we're in this situation. And the fact that we do and we act in this way, right, means that we haven't learned that lesson. And so God says, all right, you have to learn this lesson. Do you really need that a 9-year-old boy has to be murdered before you're going to get along with each other? If that's what it takes? But that's very sad. And that's something that we should be way beyond. The fact is, that's what happened. That it took the death of a 9-year-old boy, right, like 3-4 days before the 3-week period, for us to realize how important it is for us to be unified. And this is what I wrote in my article last week, and I find it very significant, because we need to be awakened to this. This story in the Torah tells us that the non-Jews came to Yitzhak and they told him, you can't live here, you're too powerful, get out of here. Right? They were against the Jews, the Hebrews. Right? And then they go and they plug up his wells, and they do everything, they fight with them and so forth. Why do they do this? Because we're not acting correctly. Right? Among Isaac's people, they weren't acting correctly. There's a reason for this. And we're the same way. So really, to not belabor the point, we see that during the 3-week period, the most important thing that we can do, and everything that we do when it comes to mourning, that we don't get haircuts, and we don't shave, and we don't get married, and we don't do this, and we don't do that, all of the things I just told you about, all of those things are just reminders to us to remember to treat each other correctly. If we do all of those things and don't get married, and we don't get haircuts, don't shave, and we don't fix the problem, then we're going to be doing this forever. Right? That's the problem with it. So we need to make a point to work at this issue, and that's what the Torah is telling us here. So that's just a bit of a talk for a few moments about the 3 weeks that we're in and what it means to us and what's going on. Then let's take a look for a few minutes at the parsha for this week.
Excuse me, Rabbi Rothman.
Yeah.
While you're talking, you just said something about the wells.
Yeah, pretty much most of what I said.
No,
about
that's
the wells,
fine.
right?
I'm not got nothing against it. But you remember Joseph, didn't they make him go down the well?
Well, they threw him into a pit. Similar.
Yes, I was just thinking.
It's a good point. Let's take a look at page 900. 901 is Parshas Matos. Parshas Matos begins a number of parshas that are a little bit more difficult to talk about. There's no obvious story like Balak and Bilam and Pinchas, all these great stories that you can talk about. They're so laden with deeper meanings. Here we have a parsha that's pretty much filled with laws that are not necessarily seem so exciting. But let's take a look. It begins with V'adaber Moshe es Roshei Amatos. Moshe tells the heads of the tribes, B'nai Israel, to the Jewish people, the following. What does he tell them? He tells them this whole section is the laws of a neder. You ever hear the expression Jews don't take vows? They don't make oaths. Like if you go to court and they want you to swear in, I swear like this. You're not supposed to do it. Right? That's because we have to know what that means. When you take a vow or an oath, what you're saying is that this that I am saying is true. It is so true. It is true like God exists. And therefore, if what I'm saying is not true, then God does not exist. Right? So since I believe in God, I'm telling you that the words I'm going to say now are true. They're so true that I am tying it into the existence of God. Since we believe in God so firmly, then of course that's true. Therefore, what I'm telling you is true. That's what you're doing when you make an oath. You use God's name and you say, "As God is true, this is true." And therefore, if you're lying, you're denying the existence of God, which is a serious thing. That's what an oath or a vow is. And there's lots of reasons. Some are very good reasons that a person might do this. But nevertheless, what we're being taught here in this section is the whole idea of these expressions, these vows, these oaths, and so forth, promises even, and what they mean. Because here's what you're doing: is you're taking words. Words have no weight in themselves. They're not physical. They're words, and you're making a statement. I'm saying like this, that what I'm about to tell you is true. Right? Let's say I'm in court, and I have to testify that such and such a person told me they were going to that they signed a contract with this person, and they're supposed to pay. And they told me this. So I come to court and I say, yes, this guy told me that he signed a contract with this fellow and that he owes him money. So now that I say this in court, if I take an oath, then I am saying for all purposes that this is 100% true. And therefore, you now know that person signed a contract. And if he says to you, I didn't sign a contract, you can tell him, we know you're lying. Because I took an oath to say that this was the case. You can have other types of oaths, for instance, where I can say, I want to improve myself, and I love ice cream. So in order to improve myself, I want to discipline myself. I am telling you right now, if I was actually doing it, and I would swear in the name of God that I will not eat ice cream for 6 months. Right? That's an oath. And what happens is that if I do that, then ice cream becomes forbidden to me like pork. I'm not allowed to eat ice cream. I'm not. You are. I made the oath. So making these statements, right, saying words, have an effect on the world. Yesterday I've ate ice cream. It might not be good for me, but there's nothing wrong with it. Today if I eat ice cream, it's like eating pork. I'm breaking the Torah because I said these words. And now we see how our words, the words that we say, have amazing power. But I was telling somebody yesterday this idea that when you get married, right, like right now you have a couple, they get engaged, and God forbid one of them dies. Right? It's horrible. I wouldn't want such a thing to happen. But what happens to the other one? The other person? Nothing. They're not married. They're not related. They don't mourn. They don't have no law to mourn. They don't inherit. They're two separate people. But when they get married, suddenly their status changes. One of them owes money. Now both of them owe money. One of them has money and dies. The other one inherits. If one of them, let's say, now that they're married, the woman can't marry another person. She's married. If the husband dies, she has to sit shiva. Right? I mean, she's related to him now. Before she wasn't related to him. They're not born from the same parents. They weren't, right? The words that we say in the marriage ceremony changes who they are. Right? So you see how powerful words can be. Words are amazingly powerful. And so here we have the laws telling us, listen, when you talk, when you say something, it has an effect. So you have to be careful. So you want to take an oath, you want to take a vow, you want to promise something, make sure that what you're doing is correct. Because if not, it has an effect. If you go and you say, I saw this person running down the street with a knife saying he's going to kill that person, that other person, right, that's a serious statement. And someone could die because you say that. But right, and all you're saying is words. But words have an enormous amount of power. And the Torah is telling us here that God says to Moshe, tell the heads of the Jewish people, and that they should tell the Jewish people that the following things are facts. And it goes through all the laws of taking an oath and how an oath is taken, and then how you can get out of an oath if you need to, and so forth. And what's interesting here is that it doesn't say that God tells Moshe to tell the Jewish people. It says God tells Moshe to tell the heads. the leaders of the Jewish people, and that they will tell the Jewish people. So why would that be? Why doesn't God just tell Moshe, like every other place, tell the Jewish people? Right here they're adding in like a middle group. So the point is that the information here that they're telling them about how to take an oath, how to make an oath no longer apply. Let's say you took an oath, right, that I'm never going to eat another apple again. You take such an oath. And then 6 months later you find out the doctor says that you really need to eat apples or you're going to die. So now you want to go and have that oath erased. So how do you do it? So the Torah tells you here how to do it. What oath needs to be erased, what doesn't, how do you do it, and so forth. It's telling us how to do that. So it's telling us how strong our words are and then how we can reverse our words. And that's something that they wanted to tell the leaders of the Jewish people. Because if you told the average person, they might abuse it. So give the information to the leaders so the leaders can educate the people so they understand not only the words themselves, but the power of words. So that people should understand what it is when they talk, what they're doing. When they're making statements, what they're doing. So that's why it's told to them in such a way. And it goes through all of these rules. That somebody makes an oath or a promise or makes a prohibition for themselves, what happens and who can get rid of it. And that whole section goes through it. We then have the next section on the bottom of 902, the last line, 902 and 903. Hashem speaks to Moshe and he says, take vengeance for the children of Israel against the Midianites. Afterward you will be gathered into your people. It's a very important and a very frightening statement that God tells Moshe, I want you to go out and take vengeance for the Jewish people. What happened? We know already. You have the story of Bilam. And Bilam wants to curse the Jews and he fails. So as he's leaving, the people who hired him, because he's a hired gun, he's a hitman, right? He's supposed to curse the Jews and then they would lose. He couldn't curse them. He fails. So now he tells the people who hired him, listen, I failed. But if you want to get the Jews, I'll tell you what to do. Their God hates when they act with inappropriate sexual activity. They hate God. Their God hates it. Immorality, and their God hates them worshiping idols. So you get the Jews to have relations like freely with other people, and you get them to worship idols, and their God will be mad at them, and then you can kill them. Then you can destroy them. So they decide to do that. The Midianites go, and they take their own daughters, and they get their daughters to seduce Jewish men, and convince them to worship idols. Right? And we have the whole story of Pinchas of what happens. So this thing, right, that happens, the Midianites were prepared, because they hated the Jews so much, they were prepared to take their own children and sacrifice them. They take their own children and say, go, you imagine you tell your daughter, go sleep with those guys? Right? Go have relations with those men. So why? Because I want you to hurt them. Right? Well, what am I doing to my own daughter? This is just as bad or worse. Right? But so you see how much they hated. They hated the Jews. They wanted to destroy them so badly. So they do it. So now God says, they tried to destroy you and they failed. You have to take vengeance. They have to know they can't do this. You can't do this to the Jewish people. You can't go around trying to hurt them. So he says to Moshe, go out there, it says, right, go out and take vengeance to the Jewish people, and then afterward you'll be gathered unto your people. You know what that means? Afterward you're going to die. So here Moshe is told, you get the Jewish people, create an army, go out there and go to war against the Midianites. Teach them not to start up with you. After you do that, you're going to die. And we know Moshe is dying, right? He's not going to the land of Israel. It's at that point. So then it says that Moshe spoke to the people, arm men from among yourselves for the legion that they may be against Midian, to inflict Hashem's vengeance against Midian. So here we have a number of important points. Number one, immediately God tells Moshe to go do this. Immediately he does it. Right away. He says, tell them to go seek vengeance and you'll die. So if I was Moshe, I'd say, you know what? God says, we should seek vengeance against the Midianites, and then I'll die. So what we're going to do is we're going to wait a couple of years, and then we'll seek vengeance against them. Because I'm not going to die until you do it. This way I'll live longer. Like, I'm certainly not going to go right now and do it. Give me a couple of days, right? But what does he do? Boom, he goes and does it. Because God tells him to do something, Moshe does it. This shows you the total reliance and faith that Moshe has in God, that everything God does is for good. Even his own death is ultimately for good, so Moshe goes to do it. That's one point that's very important to see, that he goes immediately, and he does it. He doesn't wait. But another thing is that when God explains what they're doing and when Moshe explains what they're doing, it's not the same. You'll see the words are different. God tells Moshe, I want you to go, and I want you to attack the Midianites. You know why? Take vengeance for the children of Israel. because the Midianites went and they tried to destroy the Jewish people. So I want you to take vengeance for the children of Israel, for the Jewish people, right? God is saying, do that. Now when Moshe goes to the people and he says, our men, right, for the legion that they may be against Midian. Why? To inflict Hashem's vengeance. He's saying, go out there and take vengeance for Hashem. Hashem says, go out there and take a vengeance for the Jewish people. And Moshe, instead of going and saying, all right, listen, God says we got to stand up for ourselves. They tried to hurt us, we got to go kill them. No, he says, we're going to go out there and go to war against them because they tried to attack God. God says they tried to attack the Jewish people. The Jewish people say they tried to attack God. So which is it? So this is a very important idea, because what God is saying is that God and Moshe, both things are true. When the Midianites wanted to destroy the Jewish people, they were attacking God just as well, because the Jewish people represent God. We are the holy nation. We represent God in the world. So if you're attacking us, you're attacking God. You're attacking God, you're attacking us. It's the same thing. So therefore, when God says, go out there and attack them because of what they did to you, that's because God loves us. Right? God loves us. And just like a parent is prepared to even hurt themselves for the sake of their children, certainly a parent is prepared to allow themselves to be insulted for the sake of their children. Right? We probably all done it, where because we want our children to get ahead, we're prepared to give of ourselves. So here God loves us. We're his children. God says, yes, I know that they tried to attack me, because that's why they attacked you, because they hate me. But you know what? They attacked you, and I love you, and I want you to take vengeance because of what they did to you. And Moshe says the Jewish people love God. So what am I going to do to get them to go to war? If I say, go to war because they tried to destroy you, the people say, well, it's not, we can live with it. We're not going to go to war for that reason. So Moshe says, no, go to war because they tried to attack God. Oh, we love God. God is our Father. He's here to help us. So then they went to war. So you see the different frame of mind, that the idea of giving. For myself, I won't do it. We find this a very interesting Gemara about this. We'll conclude with that. Well, we get a few minutes. So the Gemara tells us the following. It says God does all of the mitzvahs. Right? Just like we do the mitzvahs, God does the mitzvahs. So the Gemara asks, so you mean he keeps Shabbos? Well, he keeps Shabbos. It says on the seventh day God rested. That he keeps Shabbos, just like we keep Shabbos. They said, all right, you're so smart. God does the mitzvahs because you wear tefillin. Men have to wear tefillin, right? Does God wear tefillin? Right? So this says, yeah, he does. He wears tefillin. So he says, oh, come on, give me a break. God wears tefillin. What do they say? Thomas, what did the tefillin say? Because inside the tefillin are pieces of scroll with words in it. What does it say? In our tefillin, it says, who is like you, God? Shema Yisrael. There's one God. Right? And who is like you, O God? Right? So what does his tefillin say? His says, Mi ka'amach Yisrael goy echad ba'aretz. Ours say, Shema Yisrael, God is one. His says, there is no one like the Jewish people, one nation in the world. And that's what it says in God's tefillin. So it says, what do you mean God's tefillin? God, yeah, right, that's very nice what it says. So in God's tefillin, he praises us. Right, the Jewish people. And our tefillin, we praise God. Right? That's the difference. That's the same idea. In God's tefillin, his whole idea is the Jewish people are great. If they fulfill their potential, they'll save the world. And in our tefillin and our belief is that God is great. And everything we do is to serve God. So it's the same idea. Right? You find this in here. And you find this one other example, is with the holiday of Passover. If you look in the Torah, you never see the holiday of Passover called the holiday of Passover. It's never called that. We call it Pesach, the holiday of Passover. It's never called that. Nowhere in the Torah is it called Passover. It's called the holiday of the spring, the holiday of freedom. There's many words for it, but not Pesach. And why is that? It says because God says that this is the holiday, right, where the Jewish people become free. Right? So therefore, he refers to it as Chag HaMatzos, the holiday of the matzah. Why is that? Because the Jews ate matzah as they were leaving Israel, leaving Egypt, because we believed in God, so we ate matzah as we left Egypt. So God, see how great the Jewish people are? They ate matzah, and we say, no, this is the holiday of Pesach. Why do we call it holiday of Pesach? Because God passed over our houses. So we say the whole holiday is to celebrate what God did for us. So God says, what's the whole holiday for? To celebrate what you did for me. Because God looks to us and he loves us. We look to God and we love him. So all of these are examples of the same idea as we see here. That when Moshe wants the Jewish people to do something, he says they attack God. When God wants the Jewish people to do something, he says they attack the Jews. Right? Because God thinks about us, he loves us, and we think of God because we love him. So that's why it says that. Now, there's a couple of other important points in here. Let's see if we can find one before we have to stop. All right, here on page 910 and 911, we have the request of Reuben and God. What is this? Here, instead of reading through the whole thing, you can see it if you like, but I'll explain it. The story is as follows. The Jewish people are about to go into the land of Israel. We know Moshe can't go. He's going to die before they go. So they can see, we're just about there now. They're going to the desert. They're almost there. They know they're about to go. So they're starting to plan who's going to be where, what's going to happen here, what's going to happen there. God gives out the land, so everybody knows where they're going to go. And this tribe of Gad and the tribe of Reuben, two tribes of the Jewish people, they go to Moses and they say, listen, we don't want to go to Israel. Right outside of Israel, in the Jordan Valley, is this amazing place for our livestock. There's this river, and there's land, and the river nourishes the land, so there's a lot of minerals in the ground. There's a lot of beautiful grass grows here. It's perfect for our animals. We want to stay here. We don't want to go into the land of Israel. We'll stay here. So they ask him, would that be okay? And if we stay here rather than going to the land of Israel? So Moshe gets upset. He says, you mean you're going to stay here and the rest of the Jews are going to go in there and go to war to take over the land? You're going to let your brothers fight? You're just going to sit here and say how nice life is? Because you're in this beautiful area? Forget it. So they said, no. We'll go to fight with them. But after the fight's over, we'll have our inheritance in Israel, but we would like to live out here. That's what we want to do. Right? So that they make this, they go to Moshe to ask this. So God, he lets them. Eventually, he lets them. But if we look closely at the words, we find some interesting things. It says, right, beginning at verse 1, it says that they approached him, and but when you get to verse 4, here in chapter 32, like right in the middle, it says, the land that Hashem smote before the assembly of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. Right? If we have favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as a heritage. So they come and they ask that they want to have a place that they can go where they can build places for their livestock and homes for their children. In fact, it actually says on verse 16 and 9:13, it says, they approached him and said, so now these two tribes went to Moshe and they said, pens for the flock shall we build here for our livestock, and cities for our small children. Right? So they said, all we're going to do is we're going to just build pens for our flocks, then we're going to build homes for our small children, and then we'll come with you to fight the war. So don't worry, we're not leaving you behind. So then Moshe comes back to them. Right? He says in verse 20, Moshe says to them, if you do this thing, if you arm yourself before Hashem for the battle, and every armed man you shall cross the Jordan, right, and the land shall be conquered, right, and you go to verse 24 where he sums up, but build for yourselves cities for your small children and pens for your flock, and what comes from your mouth you should do. So here Moses says, okay, you told me you're going to build pens for your animals, and you're going to build homes for your children, and then you're going to leave them behind, and you're going to go to war with us, right? That's what you said. So I'm telling you, go build homes for your family, for your children, and pens for your livestock, and then you can come. It's okay. But if you listen closely to what I said, what the Torah said, it was not the same thing, just like before. When they say to Moshe, they say, we're going to build pens, right, barns for our livestock, and we're going to build homes for our small children. Moshe says, oh, if what you're saying to me is that you're going to go to war with us, you just want to first build homes for your small children and pens for your livestock. And you notice I reversed it. They said first they're going to build barns for their livestock and then homes for their children. And Moshe says back to them, oh, if what you're saying is you're going to build homes for your children and then barns for your livestock, okay, I'll let you do it. So he doesn't say the same thing. The difference is that Moshe feels that these two tribes have an ulterior motive. You know why they want to be here? They say so, but they do it because they want to make money.
We have animals. This is the greatest place to raise animals. We're going to build. There's a lot of water. There's a lot of grass. We'll have great animals. We'll all become rich. So we want to stay here. So in order to do what you want, we'll just make a barn for our animals and make a house for our children. Moshe says, you see, you guys are only thinking about money. Because what would a normal person do? A normal person's not going to make a barn for his animals and then a house for his kids. You make a house first for your family, and then you make a barn. Right? You take care of your family before you take care of your animals. And they say, no, we're going to take care of our animals before we take care of our family. And he said, no, if you're going to do that, I'm not letting you. But if you do it this way, right, then I'd let you. Because Moshe knows that they are thinking too much about money. Money is too important to them. And we say, like, what is this telling us today? What it's telling us today is that we do the same thing. That they're saying, we're going to build for our animals first and then for our children. In other words, we're going to take care of our business first. We're going to make sure we make money, and then we'll take care of our kids. That's a backwards idea. Take care of your family, and then take care of making money. I don't mean wait years. I mean, your family is your first priority. Your children, your wife, your husband, your first priority are the people, not the money. Yes, you have to make money. Yes, you have to be responsible. But you are not making money for the right reason. Right? You don't have a family so that you can make money. You make money so you can have a family. The family comes first, then the barn. Right? And all of us see this or do this ourselves to some extent, where we give up so much family time, so much time of our life that we could spend with our family, do things with our family because of work, that sometimes we get confused. Do we have work for our families or families for work? Do we work to live or do we live to work? Why is it? And here Moshe is telling us he heard this in their words, so he reverses the order to send a message to you and me. So that today, in the year 2011, when we think about what am I going to do with my family, am I going to have time with my family, am I going to have dinner with my family, take a vacation with my family, or do I got to work? Yes, don't be irresponsible about work. You have to work. That's the way the world is. You have to make a living. But you don't necessarily have to miss all their birthday parties. And you don't have to necessarily not go on vacation or not come home for dinner. You have to have work. But remember, God is going to make sure you can make a living. You work 15 hours, you work 13 hours, you're going to make a living. And if you're not, then you won't either way. Don't make yourself crazy. Your purpose of our life is your family, not your money. So that's what he's telling us there. It's an important message. And it's a message that we all, to some extent, right, we all need to be reminded of. Even though it's something that, if I ask any one of you, you'd all say, what comes first? Going to work or your families? Of course, everybody says family. There's nobody who says work comes before family. But how do people live? I know that some of my friends, they were studying, so they studied to become lawyers. So when you're becoming a lawyer, certainly in big cities like New York, but I'm sure it's the case in other cities, much of your time is spent as a lawyer doing work, many hours. So you end up working like from 6 in the morning till 10 at night, 5 days a week, and maybe even a 6th day. Like an enormous amount of hours, right? Especially in the beginning, because it's expected of you in order to usually become partner and you can make real money. Right? But what happens in the meantime? In the meantime, you're never home, and when you are home, you're exhausted. Right? That's no life. That's no way to be. You have to make time for other things. But we all do it. I have the same problem. I have people who want to see me, right? They want appointments. They want to come see me, right? And for me, that's the most important thing. And it's much more important for me to see people who need me than anything else I have in my work. But though people want to see me when it's convenient for them, and I understand that, right? Of course. But I also have a family life, and I also have to make time for them. And there are certain times when I forget that, and I get involved with people's lives, and I'm here from 6 in the morning till 10 o'clock at night, right on through, and my family, loses out because of it. I'm not there for them. I'm not there with them, and I lose out because of it. And it's something that we all need to remember, everybody, ourselves, every one of us, to one extent or another, that we can't confuse what we have to do with why we do it. Whatever it is that we have to do is not necessarily something that takes precedence over why we do it. Why we do it is for our families. What we do is up to us, but the fact that we do it is for our families. We don't have families to make it easier for us to do what we do. We make money for our families. We don't have families to make money. Right? That was their mistake, and that's a mistake we shouldn't make. Okay?